Go back to the line on the home. 1 minute.
Where does your lake group meet, Narad? Where does your lake group meet?
That was the big problem today. They didn't know where to meet. They were supposed to meet at this one person's house, and then they changed it to CSS, and then someone couldn't make it to CSS, and I said, well, I can't make it either because I have B coming. And so they were going to reschedule.
Okay.
It's a way for me to assist without being involved with these executives.
Sure.
And I can do the little that I can in beautification.
I would imagine it'll be a while before they actually start doing something like planting, right? I mean, they can design what it would be, but there's so
I
much
think it'll
work
be a
going
while.
on.
It'll be quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
And
machinery.
it's not decided about the lake yet also. How deep, how wide, whether it will have water lilies and lotus or not. The way it looks now, you can't get anything planted there.
Right.
All these things have to be addressed. On the western side, there's pipes, all kinds of pipes going through, and I don't know how I can plant unless we move that road a little bit to the west. Major problems.
Over time.
In Mother's way.
Right.
Narad, the light is on.
Yeah, we can.
Now, right.
Just started the line, so we can start the class.
What light is on?
It's 6:31.
That's fine.
Started.
Well, the lady is probably not coming, so we can begin with Savitri. And I have to go page
25.
25.
For him, minds limiting firmament ceased above.
Oh, for him, minds. Okay. For him, mind's limiting firmament ceased above. Well, it is true that the mind has great limitations, and Sri Aurobindo covers this in great depth in his work. The word firmament simply means the vault or the expanse of heavens or the sky. So that firmament is no longer applicable to Ashwapati because it's a limiting thing and he is no longer limited. In the griffin forefront of the night and day, and I have to go a little slowly here because some of these words are a little challenging. We know a griffin as a beast with the head and wings of an eagle and the body of a lion. That's a griffin. A forefront, of course, is the foremost part, the position of the greatest importance. So he is there in this griffin forefront of the night and day. And we can see how beautifully Sri Aurobindo puts this griffin idea along with night and day. So it's fantastic line. In the griffin forefront of the night and day, a gap was rent in the all-concealing vault. Again here, to rend something, this is past tense, rent, torn apart, ripped apart. So this gap in the all-concealing vault, that chamber, wherever that is, that he is in at that moment, was, and it's all concealing, it conceals everything. But it was torn apart by Ashwapati. And the conscious ends of being went rolling back. The landmarks of the little person fell. So we see that a landmark is usually defined as a prominent identifying feature. So we can say that there's a landmark. The banyan tree is the landmark of the geographical center of Aurobindo. And the Matrimandir is the landmark of the spiritual center of Aurobindo. So that's the landmarks. But here he's talking about the landmarks of the person who lives in ignorance. The person who lives in body, life, and mind. And therefore the conscious ends of his being went rolling back, as if something just unrolled, and now he's open. And the last line, where we have a full stop, is so beautiful. The island ego joined its continent. Oh my gosh. So the island ego. So we have the landmarks, then we have the island ego, and certainly the ego is an island surrounded by infinity. So Sri Aurobindo is going to continue on now, speaking about this great opening of Ashapati. He's going to tell us that overpast was this world of rigid, limiting forms. Now, for me, this is a very important line in my life. Because many times we are set upon, accused, condemned, criticized, spoken harshly to. So our world, where we see everything as forms, because it's an empiric world for us. We don't see the etheric areas that science doesn't even accept as yet, the ether. So we see these small things, this world of rigid, limiting forms. One time when I was being severely criticized for taking the help of a lady from Mumbai, very wealthy lady, very generous lady, when Shamsundar couldn't come up with 500 rupees a month for my 12 boys working there. And she gave me this money. And they came down pretty hard on me. It should have been given to the central fund. We know how to use it. And I said, what about these children working for me? From the ages of maybe 12, 13 up to 19 or 20. And there are a few of them already, 3 or 4 of them have already passed away. Yeah. So what came to me was never judge another person until you can see their soul. And when you can see their soul, there'll be no reason to judge. So life's barriers opened into the unknown. And there is this truth which is imperceptible to the outer consciousness. If we could truly see, these barriers of life would open into the new and the unknown. And he capitalizes unknown very carefully, because the unknown, I've talked to you about that before, the unknown can be the known, as well as the impossible is the symbol of things that are possible and realized in the future. Nothing is impossible. In fact, Sri Aurobindo says anything that has existed in this life will never go out of existence. And the Akashic records prove that. So now we have these covenants, these binding agreements, and these conceptions, these ideas conceived in the mind. Abolished were conceptions, covenants, and striking off subjections, rigorous clause. And now we have 3 lines, 3 words here in one sentence. So we have a subjection, that's a concept or a plan or a design or an idea, whatever, but it's conceived in the mind. Rigorous, harsh, strict, severe. And a clause, of course, is a distinct article or stipulation or provision in some kind of document. So in one line, he gives us striking off subjections, rigorous clause. And we can see how powerful that clause was. So powerful that only he could strike it off. Doesn't exist for him anymore. Annulled the soul's treaty with nature's nescience. And this is very important because Annulled here is something that is made void. You annul something, you make it void, you abolish it, cancel it. Now, nescience, Sri Aurobindo tells us in The Life Divine, nescience in nature is the complete self-ignorance. So we have inconscience, and then we have nescience, and he capitalizes nature again, because nature, he tells us, is the complete self-ignorance also, nescience in nature. So this needs a little explanation. Nature is Prakriti, Gaia, the divine creatrix. But from the heights that she's descended from the supermind, she narrows herself to get down into the earth nature. And there's when the nescience comes. And so nature has to try to, her work is always creation at the same moment as destruction. Interesting. Because she's trying to create something greater. And therefore other things that are lesser have to be destroyed. So we'll continue on. All the gray inhibitions were torn off. Well, gray here is more in the sense of dull or dreary or even monotonous, something without any light in it or very little light, because he uses the word gray inhibitions, not dark or black, but just gray, and we understand what gray is. All the gray inhibitions were torn off and broken the intellect's hard and lustrous lid. Well, we know that Nolini has told us that the mind is an ivory tower. Yes, it has a lustrous lid, but it's unable to break that hard and lustrous lid. And so, on a disciple's birthday, if I can remember it, Sri Aurobindo wrote to him, there is a veil behind the heart, a lid over the mind. Love and devotion rend the veil, and in the quietude of the mind, the lid thins and vanishes. And that's what we see here. The intellect's hard and lustrous lid has been rent, torn apart, the gray inhibitions torn off, and therefore he has a semicolon after the word lid, and he says, truth unpartitioned found immense sky room. So there's no more partitioning of this is true, this is false, this is good, this is bad. He sees everything with this vast vision. Nothing is divided, nothing is sectioned off. And what does he tell us next after that semicolon? An Empyrean vision found immense sky room. Empyrean here, it can be defined as heavenly. It was often referred to the highest heaven by the ancients, which contained the pure element of fire. So an Empyrean vision, saw and knew. The bounded mind became a boundless light. How beautiful. When this mind of ours is so bounded, we can't hold thousands of things at once at the same time. We have to leap from point to point to point. Now, not with Ashwapati, not with Sri Aurobindo. The bounded mind became a boundless light. No boundaries, no more limits. The finite self mated with infinity. Mated here is the sense of married, wedded, got wedded with infinity, joined with infinity. And now we see the next 4 lines, extraordinary. His march now soared into an eagle's flight. Out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom upraised him to her master craft and made him the archmason of the soul, a builder of the immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness. Let's go through that for a bit because it's so important. We all go through an apprenticeship to ignorance. And as we grow, we begin to learn more and more things. Our mind does expand, our heart does expand. We are able to not only conceive of love, but in many instances to be love. So, out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom upraised him to her mastercraft. Now, mastercraft is one who is eminently skilled in something, a master craftsman, perhaps in carpentry or the like.
A skilled artisan. A skilled artisan. Skilled artisan. Is it like that?
An artisan, yes, it would be an artisan, yes, definitely. And wisdom upraising him to her mastercraft. And look what her mastercraft is here. Something so extraordinary that it makes him an archmason of the soul. An archmason is generally considered a master builder. We've had great archmasons in the world. Look at the architecture of the world. Look at the sculpture of the world. Archmason is often spelled with a hyphen, but Sri Aurobindo uses the full word. So wisdom, using her master craft, has made Ashwapati a master builder, a builder of the immortal's secret house. So you see now we see the connection from apprenticeship in ignorance to ignorance, wisdom raising him up to her mastercraft, making him a master builder of the soul, and a builder of the immortal's secret house. Note the capital I in immortal. And what is the secret house? Is it the soul, the supermind? Perhaps not yet, because he is still an aspirant to timelessness. Only in Book 1, Canto 5 are we going to see where all the realization pours into him, and he's no more a novice or a neophyte. An aspirant to supernal timelessness. Supernal generally is synonymous with heavenly, heavenly timelessness, freedom and empire call to him from on high. Above mind's twilight and life's star-led night, there gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day. So important. He's taking us back now to Book 1, Canto 1, when the dawn is just beginning to come. But in him now is this dawn, in a human being. So he's an aspirant to supernal timelessness. Calling him from on high is freedom and empire. And all of this is far above the mind's twilight, he calls it. In other lines, he uses the word half-light, and Yeats uses half-light quite often also. The light and the half-light. So, above mind's twilight and this star-led night of life, we're sort of, Bea was talking about it today. There's astrology. And many people are led very clearly by astrology. So there's a gleam now of this dawn of a spiritual day, but it's just a gleam still. It's just a gleam of the dawn. So now I have to go to another page. Let's see now, that would be. Okay.
Got it?
Not yet, but I'm almost there. As so he grew into his larger self, humanity framed his movements less and less. He does not forget humanity because he is the seer. If we go deeper, we know that it's Sri Aurobindo. But humanity is not framing his movements. He's beyond all of this. We've heard so many lines telling us how far he's advanced. So the next line after the semicolon, a greater being saw a greater world. And this is what we're looking forward to in our present human existence. We see all the suffering that's going on in humanity, and we're calling to Mother for this greater world to come down sooner rather than later. A fearless will for knowledge dared to erase the lines of safety reason draws that bar mind's soar, soul's dive into the infinite. Well, Sri Aurobindo talks a great deal about reason, that it doesn't have a place in the spiritual life. Reason is always weighing things, evaluating things. But Ashwapati has a fearless will for knowledge, and he even dares to erase the lines of safety that are drawn by reason as a bar. A bar means something that obstructs, prevents, hinders, impedes. So, what is that bar? Well, it bars many things, but especially it bars minds soar and souls dive into the infinite. So that's the problem with reason. It's so limited. Even his first steps broke our small earth bounds and loitered in a vaster, freer air. Well, this is an interesting word, loitered. When we use the word loiter, it usually means hangs around or lingers aimlessly, but not for Sri Aurobindo, because he's sort of, I feel, telling us that one has entered a space that has never been entered before. And one could loiter there for a while, standing idly in this new and magical place. And I think I'll end there. Would you like to read the whole thing for us? From the beginning?
Yeah, I can.
Good.
Page 25.
In the middle something.
Page 20 from first canto. This canto.
25.
25. Okay. For him.
For him, mind's limiting firmament.
For him, mind's limiting firmament ceased above. In the griffin forefront of the night and day, a gap was rent in the all-concealing vault. The conscious ends of being went rolling back. The landmarks of the little person fell. The island ego joined its continent. Overpassed was this world of rigid limiting forms. Life's barriers opened into the unknown. Abolished were conception's covenants, and striking off subjection's rigorous clause, annulled the soul's treaty with nature's nations. All the grey inhibitions were torn off, and broken the intellect's hard and lustrous lid. Truth unpartitioned found immense sky room, and Empyrean vision saw and knew. The bounded mind became a boundless light. The finite self mated with infinity. His march now soared into an eagle's flight. Out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom appraised him to her master craft, and made him an archmason of the soul, a builder of the immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness. Freedom and empire called to him from on high. Above mind's twilight and life's star-led night, there gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day. And so he grew into his larger self. Humanity framed his movements less and less. A greater being saw a greater world. A fearless will for knowledge dared to erase the lines of safety, reason's draws that bar. Minds soar, souls dive into the infinite. Even his first steps broke our small earth bounds and loitered in a vaster, freer air.
Good, thank you. A couple of things that come to me that could help you is to not drop your voice on the last word of the line. And if you work on that, you'll see that the continuity is much smoother when you read, a fearless will for knowledge dared to erase. And then that's a full stop. No, no, no. It dared to erase what? The lines of safety. And you just work on that one thing and you'll make a great improvement. But a good reading. Yeah, all your pronunciation was correct.
Thank you.
Concentrate a few moments. Yes, go ahead.
What is the symbolism of mind's twilight and life's starlit night?
Mind does not have the light. The best it can do is a twilight.
The life has light already with this.
Mind has some light in it, sure. There have been great minds that have shared extraordinary things with us in this world of ours. But the starlit night leads me to believe in an astrological hint there. We're led by the stars, we're moved by the stars. Can anyone see any different meaning in it? Starlit night?
I thought that mind is just reflecting the light comes from the divine, and it is not a night in center. So it has lots of impurities in it. And with that, if we try to look at life, then it is just like the night with the stars, not like the sunshine daytime.
I feel that our life on earth is dark, mostly because of that, what we say, reasoning, and it's always on doubtful. So in that, the stars, when it comes, it's like a awakening. So once we feel the stars, that we come out of that mind's reasoning and direct with the.
Yes, it's a starlit night, but we know about Venus, we know the morning star, we know the different constellations.
They are there, of course they are the light, but they cannot bring the light into earth.
No, and they're a reflected light from the divine, and the divine is always the sun.
What is empire here? I forgot.
Empyrean?
No, empire. Freedom and empire called to him from on high.
Yeah. Empire is the vastness. Sri Aurobindo was asked time and time again, who were you in past lives? He would never answer. Were you Julius Caesar? No, no, no. Were you Shakespeare? Absolutely not. And there are only two where he would not comment. Leonardo da Vinci and
Napoleon?
Alexander.
Any-
Napoleon Bonaparte?
no, but he appreciated what Napoleon. Huh? No. Yes, exactly. Alexander the Great. Look what he did to humanize 2/3 of the world at that time.
Total contrast.
Total contrast. Yeah. And when they asked him, what were you doing in the rest of this existence from the time of man, he said, carrying on the evolution. Take a few moments to concentrate. We can end with Om.